Imagine you are floating 20,000 feet in the air. Your plane is completely shattered, one engine is completely dead, the tail is blown away. Half your crew is unconscious or bleeding out, and you are limping across the heavily defended skies of Nazi Germany. Suddenly, you look out your window. A German Luftwaffe ace pulls up right next to you. His fingers are resting on the trigger. He is one single burst of gunfire away from a prestigious military medal. You close your eyes, waiting for the fatal explosion, but the bullets never come. Instead, the enemy pilot does something so shocking, it would remain a top-secret military secret for nearly 50 years. This is the unbelievable true story of Franz Stigler, the German soldier who risked his own execution to save his worst enemy. Before we dive into how this terrifying aerial standoff ended, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on all notifications. We bring you the most intense, untold stories of survival and battlefield honor from history. Every single week. Drop a comment below if you think you could have made the same choice as this pilot. The date is December 20th, 1943. A young 21-year-old American pilot named Second Lieutenant Charlie Brown is flying his very first combat mission. He's piloting a massive B-17 Flying Fortress, nicknamed the Old Pub. Their target, a heavily fortified German munitions factory in Bremen. The mission is a disaster from the start. Over the target area, German anti-aircraft flak shreds the bomber's plastic nose cone. It knocks out engine number 2 and heavily damages engine number 4. The sudden loss of power forces Charlie Brown's plane to fall behind the safety of the main Allied formation. In the skies of World War II, a lone bomber was nothing more than shark bait. Soon, over a dozen German fighters swarmed the crippled B-17. For 10 brutal minutes, it is absolute hell in the sky. The bomber's oxygen system is completely destroyed, knocking out most of the crew. The tail gunner is tragically killed. Charlie Brown himself is struck in the shoulder by a bullet, losing consciousness as the plane spirals down toward the earth. Somehow, just hundreds of feet above the ground, the freezing air wakes Brown up. He fights the controls and pulls the plane out of the dive, but they are completely defenseless. The guns are frozen solid, the radio is broken, and the airframe is practically a flying piece of Swiss cheese. They are a miracle on wings, but they are still deep inside enemy territory. Down on the ground, a veteran German pilot hears the roar of a low-flying engine. His name is Franz Stigler is an absolute legend in the Luftwaffe, ace hardened ace with 27 confirmed aerial victories. Stigler needs exactly one more bomber kill to receive the Knight's Cross, Nazi Germany's highest award for combat bravery. He rushes to his Messerschmitt Bf 109, starts the engine, and blasts into the sky. Within minutes, he catches up to the low-flying B-17. Stigler maneuvers his fighter directly behind the American bomber's tail. His thumb rests on the gun button. He positions himself to pull the trigger, but as he closes the distance, he hesitates. Through his cockpit glass, Stigler doesn't see a terrifying enemy, Weapon A. C'est un massacre. The tail gunner station is completely destroyed. The fuselage is torn open, revealing terrified, blood-soaked American soldiers trying to bandage each other's horrific wounds. In that exact second, a memory flashes in Stigler's mind. He remembers the strict words of his former commanding officer in North Africa, Gustav Radel. If I ever see or hear of you shooting at a man in a parachute, I will shoot you down myself. Radel had told him, you fight by rules to keep your humanity. Looking at this defenseless, Brokebombar Stigler realizes that shooting them down wouldn't be an act of war. It would be cold-blooded murder. But here is where the story gets truly dangerous. By refusing to shoot down an enemy bomber, Franz Stigler was committing high treason against Nazi Germany. If anyone on the ground reported him, or if his wingman saw him, Stigler would face an immediate execution by a firing squad. Instead of flying away, Stigler decides to double down on his gamble. He pulls his fighter plane right alongside the B-17's cockpit, flying so close that Charlie Brown can see the features of his face. Charlie Brown is terrified. He expects the German to open fire. Instead, Stigler looks directly at him and begins frantically gesturing with his hands. He points down toward the ground, mouthing the word, Sweden. Sweden. Stigler knows the American bomber will never survive the journey across the icy North Sea back to England. He wants them to fly to neutral Sweden, where they can safely land and receive medical help. But Charlie Brown is confused, concussed, and terrified. He refuses to turn the plane around. Realizing the Americans are going to try to reach England anyway, Stigler makes an even braver choice. He stays right beside them. Why? Because he knows that German coastal anti-aircraft batteries will immediately blast an American bomber out of the sky. But they won't fire if a German fighter is flying right next to it. Franz. Stigler shields the American crew with his own plane until they safely clear German airspace and reach the open ocean. Once they are safe, Stigler looks over at Charlie Brown one last time. He brings his hand up to his helmet, delivers a crisp, respectful salute, and peels his fighter away back to Germany. Against all imaginable mathematical odds, Charlie Brown lands the old pub safely in England. During his military debriefing, he tells his commanders exactly what the mysterious German pilot did. But instead of celebrating, military brass instantly classifies the entire incident as top secret. They tell Brown and his surviving crew never to tell a single soul. They feared that if American pilots hear that German pilots can be merciful, they might hesitate to shoot them down in future battles. For decades, both men survived the war, but neither can ever forget that fateful day in the clouds. Franz Stigler moves to Canada after the war, never telling anyone about his actions out of fear of being labeled a traitor. Charlie Brown lives in Florida, haunted by the identity of the mysterious savior who spared his life. Finally, in 1990, nearly 50 years later, Charlie Brown publishes a letter in a global military newsletter, searching for the pilot who spared his life. Thousands of miles away in Canada, Franz Stigler reads it. He freezes. He writes back, "I was the pilot." When the two old men finally meet in a hotel lobby, they don't see enemies. They fall into each other's arms, crying tears of joy. Stigler later meets the children and grandchildren of the crew members. He saved lives that wouldn't exist if he had pulled his trigger. They remain as close as brothers for the rest of their lives, passing away just 8 months apart from each other in 2008. Franz Stigler showed us that true bravery isn't always about how many enemies you can defeat. Sometimes, the ultimate act of bravery is having the moral courage to preserve humanity, look past the uniform, and choose mercy in the middle of absolute chaos. What would you have done if you were in Franz Stigler's cockpit that day? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section down below. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in the next history video.